Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. We're back with an in-game analysis as Der Klassiker took center stage in the Bundesliga. Dortmund needed the win to move within a point of the leaders. However, a single Kimmich goal was enough to hand Bayern Munich the win. In terms of chance quality, the match was fairly even, with Bayern just edging it. But what tactics did Hansi Flick and Lucien Favre use? Well, let's take a look. A quick reminder of the formations, as the home team Dortmund lined up in their preferred 3-4-2-1. In response, Bayern lined up in a 4-2-3-1. Let's start with how Dortmund looked to attack during the encounter. Dortmund looked to play out through the back throughout the match, with Berkey opting to find the centre-backs most of the time. However, particularly in the first half, Bayern didn't want to let Dortmund settle on the ball and pressed high. This is shown in the stats, as Bayern only allowed 9 passes per defensive action compared to Dortmund's 18. The first aim was for Lewandowski to press Hummels, and the inside forwards were in the channel between fullbacks and centre-backs. This was so that when the ball went to the wide centre-back, they could press them from the blind side, whilst cutting off the route to the fullback, thereby taking care of the backline with the 3 forwards. It's also important to note that Bayern kept close attention on Dahoud and Delaney and reduced their influence on the game. Whether Dortmund pressed with the 3 up front or the 4-2-3-1, they always had men on the Dortmund pivots, so Dortmund could rarely play through the centre. This is shown as Dahoud and Delaney, who were meant to be the hubs of the team, only had the 6th and 8th most passes for Dortmund. As a result, Dortmund only attacked through the centre of the pitch 22% of the time. However, Dortmund still found workarounds for these situations, primarily by utilising their wing-backs. Instead of trying to directly go from the wide centre-back to the wing-back, which could easily be cut off by Bayern's inside forward, they would instead go to the far side centre-back first, or to the keeper, whilst the full-back advanced higher so that the inside forward would be drawn in. With Bayern concentrating on the pivots and the Dortmund winger occupying the fullback, the wingback would now have space to receive the long ball. And now this is where Dortmund began to make progress, as the fullback would advance up the pitch, whilst the winger made runs constantly between the centre-back and the fullback, as Bayern's fullback was often caught in 2 minds, and they often got into dangerous positions in this manner. They would often be joined by a midfielder, and Dortmund often looked to use the wide overloads to advance the ball up the pitch and cause danger for Bayern. When Bayern would look to compensate for this by shifting across the pitch, this would free the far side wing-back, and they consistently looked for these switches to then move into space and be supported by their inside forward, and they did get into dangerous positions in this manner. But when Dortmund did get high up the pitch down the centre, Bayern again looked to crowd the centre of the pitch to limit the space Dortmund's creative players had in zone 14. However, this at times would leave space wide for Dortmund to look for the cross, which happened on a couple of occasions. Lastly, at times when building up, the wide forwards had to drop quite deep in order to try and give them numbers in these central areas to try and progress through this region, as you can see in the heat maps. But overall for Dortmund, we saw Favre's struggles with trying to find a goal when necessary, as even when behind, they didn't take the game to Bayern. Now, how did Bayern go about their business? Of course, Bayern looked to play out through the centre-backs, and on the rare occasions where Dortmund did look to press high, they could shift it into a back 3, with Favre tucking in order to even up the numbers. Bayern's double pivots would then create passing options, and Dortmund's own would be really reluctant to follow, as the Bayern wingers played as inside forwards in these regions, so they didn't want to leave them unmarked. As a result, Dortmund tended to fall into a flatter 5-4-1 when defending, which at times would leave Haaland isolated when there was a turnover. But higher up the pitch, the positioning and interchange of Gnabry, Coman and Müller caused Dortmund headaches. 2 of them would almost always occupy the half spaces, with the other being alongside or just behind Lewandowski. This meant Dortmund's wingers often tried to tuck in to even things up. However, this opened up space for Pavard, and particularly Davies, to move wide and try to find someone with a cross. In addition, the Dortmund pivots had to decide whether to pick up Kimmich, Goretzka and Alaba when he advanced, or stay deeper to cut off the space into the inside forwards and attacking midfielder. When they did sit deep, it allowed crosses from deeper regions, and often, the centre-backs would have too many men to keep a track of, so runs between them would lead to big chances for Bayern, and Dortmund were lucky to escape at times. In the end, it was a bit of individual skill from Kimmich that sealed the game. Although Dortmund should almost certainly have had a penalty, in a match as big as this, they didn't show the ambition to go out and win. If you enjoyed this video, check out our dedicated videos on Flick's Bayern tactics and Favre's Dortmund tactics, linked at the end of this one. But what did you make of the match? Drop it down in the comments below. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.